a child suicide bomber detonated his explosives, killing himself, 2 other bombers, and 6 people in northeast Nigeria. Boko Haram has claimed this latest attack. The attack in Benin-sheikh in Borno State happened around 8:30 p.m. on Sunday when 3 suspected suicide bombers aged between 10 and 15 years were stopped for security screening by civilian vigilantes in the area. The defense headquarters said in a statement on Monday that Boko Haram had devised other means of inflicting harm on innocent citizens. Boko Haram has been muffled by recent military operations by Nigeria, Cameroon and Niger. However, they still conduct deadly sporadic attacks, especially in northeastern Nigeria. Well, still on that story, the Boko Haram insurgency has kept more than 1 million children out of school. According to a report by the United Nations, over 2,000 schools are closed across Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad and Niger, while hundreds of others have been attacked, looted or set on fire by Boko Haram jihadists in their quest to create an independent Islamic State. Governor Kashim Shettima reported in September that militants have destroyed $1 billion worth of infrastructure, including hospitals, bridges, roads and homes. Boko Haram has also threatened to mount mass abductions of students this month. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has given his military commanders until the end of the month to end the Boko Haram insurgency. Still on the battle against Boko Haram, Britain will expand its help to Nigeria in fighting the Islamic insurgent group by providing scores of extra military trainers, advising the Nigerian Air Force and sending a counter-explosive team. A new Royal Air Force team will improve the knowledge and skills of the Nigerian Air Force in airfield defense and counterinsurgency, while the counter-explosives team will also provide medical training and advice. The Defense Ministry said it plans to double the number of British trainers in Nigeria to about 300 over the next year. Currently, there are at least 130 British military personnel on a training mission in the country. Well, now let's get more details and analysis on this development. CCTV's Deji Badnos is standing by in Lagos, and Richard Bestick has the latest from London. Deji, starting with you, there were lots of offers from international support to Nigeria's war against Boko Haram, especially following the abduction of the Chibok girls. What is the status of that support? Well, we understand Deji cannot hear us. We'll move now to Richard. In terms of specific terms, what can we expect from this pledged British support?
Well, Mahia, the offer of support from the British is small but significant. The troops will act, as you were saying there, in a largely support role to Nigeria's armed forces in counter-insurgency operations. Specifically, the Defence Ministry says they will include specialist teams to help deal with improvised explosive devices, training for the Nigerian Air Force to improve airfield defences, and more medical training. The British, as you were saying, are already involved in Nigeria and have been for some time, but Michael Fallon, the Defence Minister here in London, says that the UK will double that number of British personnel deployed on training tasks in Nigeria over the next year. And that would bring the total number of people expected to provide support during the next year, 2016, to around 300. A small but significant deployment against Boko Haram.
And Deji, now turning to you in Lagos, there were lots of offers once again from international support to Nigeria's war against Boko Haram, especially following the abduction of the Chibok girls. What is the status now of that support? And is there now a sense that it has made a big difference?
Well, first of all, Mahia, we do not know for certainty what the status of the support is. We know that in the immediate aftermath of the kidnapping of the Chibok girls, support poured in from all over the world, from China, the United States of America, Canada, the United Kingdom, and what have you. But we also know that at some point there was some kind of disagreement now between the Nigerian government back then, especially with the U.S. government, and the U.S. government decided to pull out. And of course, as you know, at some point, the United States government stopped Nigeria from buying weapons now to fight Boko Haram. Now, has the support made any big difference? I would think so, because, for instance, we know that the Nigerian military has been able to rein in on the insurgents, even though we still see bomb attacks, as in suicide bombings once in a while. But the fact is that Boko Haram is no longer the force it used to be. Boko Haram, for instance, we know can no longer attack and hold territories as it used to do. So there's no question at all that the support has made a big difference. And from what we heard from the British Defense Secretary, I mean, talking about intelligence, he actually confirmed that the military has been able, you know, to an extent, at least defeat Boko Haram, but that what is actually needed at this moment is intelligence gathering, know when suicide bombers are likely to strike, and then try to nip that in the bud. And of course, he said that's exactly what the British government, the kind of support the British government will be offering, train Nigerian military now in terms of intelligence gathering, and to try as much as possible to end this spate of bombings by Boko Haram. So it definitely has made a huge difference.
Right, and turning back to you, Richard Bestick in London, we have, as you said, seen the British authorities escalate military activities, not just in Nigeria, but across Africa, with the possible deployment of British troops, once again, to aid in fighting ISIL in Libya, as well as this latest pledge in Nigeria. What can you say is informing this new push?
Well, there are a number of reasons for it. Nigeria is clearly a Commonwealth ally of the UK and should expect a degree of support in a battle against a difficult foe like Boko Haram. But the British action is also part of the internationalisation of the war against Boko Haram. In October, the United States began deploying 300 troops to neighbouring Cameroon, where Boko Haram has been increasingly active. But the UK and the US see Boko Haram as not as an isolated problem. Action against the organisation is regarded here in London as an extension of military action against so-called Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, and indeed, as you were saying there, in Libya. So support in Nigeria is, if you like, simply a widening of that military strategy.
All right, finally, Deji, turning back to you. President Buhari did, at the beginning of his tenure, visit several countries and lobbied for international support for the regional task force against Boko Haram. Does this support now of support from the United Kingdom fit into the overall strategy against the group?
Well, it definitely does. I mean, President Buhari, for instance, has met several times with the UK Prime Minister when he came into power to seek more support now from the United Kingdom. And it definitely does. And it fits into the entire military strategy of the Nigerian government now to defeating Boko Haram. Now that the British government has said it is going to redouble its support now for Nigeria, that we're likely going to see about 300 trainers come in here to train Nigerian military, especially in terms of intelligence gathering now. There's no question that you know, these earlier visits embarked upon by President Buhari is not yielding results, and that it feeds into the overall strategy. Because what military military experts would tell you here is that, look, it is time for the Nigerian military to move from the phase of combat to you know, physical combat now to the phase of intelligence gathering, that this is an asymmetrical warfare. Boko Haram, we know, can no longer attack and hold territories. That what you need to do now is to stop these bombings from going off. I mean, like the one we saw in Benin-sheikh and what have you. Infiltrate Boko Haram, know when they are likely to attack, and try to stop the bombings from going off. So that's exactly what the British government is offering, and no question at all that it fits into the overall strategy of the Nigerian government now in terms of defeating Boko Haram. The military, I mean, the government has said by the end of this year, in a few days' time, Boko Haram will be defeated militarily. But of course, after the military campaign, we will move on, of course, to the other phase, which is very, very crucial. The way Boko Haram is targeting what people call soft targets has to really stop. And Nigerians are really worried, and they are hoping that the Nigerian government will be able to do something to end this spate of bombing campaigns by Boko Haram.
All right, thank you very much for those insights. That was CCTV's Deji Badmus joining us from Lagos, and Richard Bestick was speaking to us from London.